living your worth. And living your worth is super important because if you don't live your worth, then you will never, listen to me, you'll never experience the potential of your life. And the first step to living your worth is understanding this truth. Your environment is everything. Your environment is everything. It's that simple. What surrounds your life will influence your life. Think about this right now. Is the environment you're currently in set up for you to live your worth? And be honest with yourself. Is the environment you're currently in progressing you or is it hindering you? I've used this analogy time and time again. You probably heard it, but if you didn't hear it, here it is. I often think of my life as a garden. And I know in order for my garden to be beautiful, it has to be in the right environment. So think about this. You have a flower, right, that has all the potential to blossom into something incredible if it's placed in the right environment. But if you put that same flower in the wrong environment, what's going to happen? Doesn't take rocket science, right? It doesn't stand a chance to grow. Why? Is there something wrong with the flower? Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong at all. There's something wrong, and listen to me, there's something wrong with the environment in which the flower is planted. Think about it. Your life is that flower. And I'll tell you right now, there's so many people that never live their worth, not because they're not special, not because they're not talented, but because the environment convinced them to think otherwise. You have to surround yourself around people, around things that bring out the best you, not the worst. You have to surround yourself around people who make you dream bigger instead of thinking smaller. And I know for most of you, it's not an overnight process, and it's a hard process at that. But if I'm you right now, I am seriously asking myself, what are the environments that can no longer exist in my life in order for me to live my best life? You cannot be afraid to burn bridges that lead you back to destruction, that lead you back to pain, or keep your life stuck in stagnation by these bridges. You got to stop letting other people be the CEO of your life. You should be the one controlling how you feel, not them. You should be the one determining the trajectory of your life, not them. Be the CEO of your life and stop investing. Do you hear me? Stop investing in the business of bad environments and start putting your stock into growth environments. What's a growth environment? Environments that force you to grow. Environments that instill confidence in you. Environments that remind you of what you deserve. Environments that remind you of your greatness. The more you place your garden in growth environments, I can guarantee you this is a promise to you. The more you will see your self-worth blossom. The more you will see your self-esteem strengthen. And the more you will see your life grow. And to be clear, the right environment isn't always sunshine. I want to be clear about that. The right environment has to give you some constructive, I'll use the word constructive rain, because a garden can't grow just with sunshine. It needs its rain. It has to have its healthy doses of both. I had to address this because sometimes we think an environment is all good for us, right? We think they're going to tell us what it wants us to hear. It's not going to challenge us. A growth environment challenges you. A growth environment encourages you. A growth environment's mission is to help you blossom into what you were created to be. Now, as you think about your life, what are you starting to feel about your environments right now? What needs to change? What do you need more of? I've said this a million times. Mindsets are contagious. You will become it and you will believe it if you keep your life around it for long enough. So for some of us, it's going to be near impossible to live our worth until we make a change in our environment. It's hard to believe, listen to me, it's hard to believe you're something if you're around an environment that makes you feel like you're nothing. It's hard to believe that you have something of value to give to this world if you're keeping yourself in an environment that makes you feel like you're nothing. And I'll use this analogy, and I've used it plenty of times, and I'll use it again and again and again. I love this quote. When the flower doesn't blossom, we don't blame the flower. We fix the environment in which it grows. I know some of you might be tired of hearing that and hearing this story, but it's the perfect story to drive this home. And I learned this in my own personal life about taking care of your garden. Me and my wife, we moved into our new house and we built this fire pit in Texas, and we wanted to build this like super peaceful vibes, as y'all know me, like ambiance, which is a great word to use. And so I'm not a handyman. I can admit it. I suck at it. I don't know how to build anything. We get a flat tire, we're calling AAA. I'm that guy. But I wanted to get cool points. And plus I didn't want to pay all this money for somebody to build a garden in my backyard, a flower bed. So what did I do? I'm gonna make this story super short. I go to the nursery, I pick out some flowers, I act like I know what I'm doing. I ask for no help at all. Somebody offered me help, I rejected the help. I go home, I plant these flowers. I did some YouTube research, so I thought I knew what I was doing. What ended up happening? Because I didn't check the soil, I watered it when I wanted to. I didn't know that it took a whole science thing when it comes to planting flowers. What happened after a few days? Those flowers ended up dying, or they were on their way to dying, or they were dead. So I went back to the store, I got some advice. First I tried to get my money back, that didn't work. I got some advice and I took care of those flowers. And then I took some of the flowers, because it was in the wrong environment, the wrong position in my house, and I moved it. And those flowers started to blossom. You might be saying, Trent, what does that have anything to do with my life? Everything. For one, sometimes your life is in the wrong hands, an inexperienced person, like me with those flowers. And two, sometimes your life is just in the wrong environment. And all it takes for you to change your life is an environment change. So as we wrap up this section, I want you to really dive deep and be real with yourself and ask yourself, what needs to change? What can no longer stay in my life? What bridges do I need to burn? Because you will never live your worth if you stay in environments that make you feel worthless. Do the work. I know it's hard, but I promise you, it's worth it. Let's get it. All right, we're back. Let's get right into this. Lock in. If you're going to be a person that truly lives their worth, like for real, that truly lives it, then I'm going to tell you right now, you have to create meaning in your life, period. You have to create meaning in your struggle. You have to create meaning in your mission. You have to create meaning for your existence on this earth. This is just facts. Where there's a lack of meaning, there's often a lack of life. Most people just live life that haven't found a reason to go live their life. People that I know that have lived their worth, they are very clear on why they're living their life. They are very intentional with their life. It's like their meaning becomes their GPS that guides them through life. Take a second and think about this. When you have a reason, like a real reason to do something, how do you do it? Unless you're just flat out lazy, I pretty much can guarantee you go hard. You're focused. The deeper the meaning, write this down. The deeper the meaning, the stronger the intensity, the greater the results. I can always tell when something means something to somebody. You know why? They operate different. They operate from their soul. They operate with a different energy. They operate with a different passion. They operate with a different focus. And I can't tell you what your life is going to mean. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you what your mission is. I can't tell you what your mission is going to mean. You have to decide that for yourself. And the question that I asked myself was, what do I want to leave here once I leave here? The question I asked myself was, what do I want my life to be a representation of? And I got very clear on that. And as a side note, clarity reduces confusion. And where there's less confusion, there's more confidence. And we know by now that confidence is a pillar of knowing your worth. It's very important to know your worth. So the question I ask you again is, what is your life gonna mean? And you get to decide that. It doesn't matter what your circumstances say right now, because some of y'all thinking about that. It doesn't matter what your struggle is saying right now. It doesn't matter even what your environment is saying right now. What matters, do you hear me? What matters is what you're choosing to believe about your life from this moment, this day forward. What matters is what you're choosing to fight for from this day forward. What matters is what you're choosing to live from this day forward. And I don't care about your past. I don't. Everything you went through has made you. You realize that, right? Everything you went through has qualified you. You understand that, right? Everything you went through has strengthened you. What matters is the meaning you create in this moment. You are the artist, and this world is your blank canvas. And for far too long, you let other people, other things paint your picture for you. Not no more. You are a choice away from a new beginning, period. And I'm coaching you right now, like literally right now, because I decided a decade ago what my life was gonna mean. And when I created meaning, I found the fulfillment my soul was searching for. Listen to me. When you find meaning in your life, you'll oftentimes find fulfillment in your life. Most people aren't fulfilled because most people are living, but not alive. I hope you caught that. I saw a statistic the other day that said 900 million people in the world, 900 million people in the world are unfulfilled in their life. 900 million. And you know why? Because most of them haven't found a true meaning for their life. I know this is true. When you find a deep meaning, you can survive anything in life. When you find a deep meaning, you can face any fear in life. Why? Because it means that much to you. I want you to do something. Think about the times in your life when you were unstoppable. And by the way, this is a practice I use to find certain traits in my life that have helped me overcome certain things. So for example, if I want to become more confident, I revisit the times in my life that I was most confident, whether it be football or whatever. I wasn't confident by accident, right? I was confident because of certain things. Think about the times in your life when you felt unstoppable. I guarantee that you found meaning in your action. You made up your mind on what you were going to get out of that moment. And there's nothing more powerful, do you hear me, in this world than a made-up mind, negative or positive. The made-up mind mentality can work for you, or to be real with you, it can work against you, depending on your mindset. If you make up your mind that you can't, you won't. If you make up your mind that you can, you will. It's that simple. But the main point of this session is to get you to understand this truth. Fulfillment, achievement, greatness, you fill in the blank. Anything positive is driven by meaning. So what I want you to do right now is think about the meanings that you've been given things. It's to think about how can you dive deeper in your meanings. It's to create a meaning that makes you unstoppable. Because when you find that meaning, I promise you, there's not a fear, there's not an obstacle, there's not a hater, there's not whatever excuse you're giving yourself that can stop you. The deeper the meaning, the more powerful your life will become. Straight up. Welcome back. Again, I appreciate you for showing up for your life. Most people don't do that. I know it's not funny, but it's serious. But it's funny too at the same time. I appreciate you for sticking with this course. It shows that you're serious about really making change and not just talking about it like most people do. So let's get right into this. I don't want to waste any time. The number one thing when it comes to people, I feel like this, not living their worth, is that they are controlled by fear, the F word, the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough, the fear of judgment, the fear of their past, the fear of change. Fear settles more lives than anything else. Fear prevents more lives than anything else. And as I'm thinking about this, like right now in real time, fear can actually work for you. I feel like I have a lot of positive fear in my life right now. I fear not living my worth, so I'm doing everything I can do to live it. I fear not finding meaning in my life, so I'm doing everything I can to constantly create it. I fear not, being the best me, so I'm willing to do the work it takes to become that person. But the truth is, for the majority of my life, fear was not working for me, but against me. And this is the case like for most people, probably for you. Fear is keeping them and you from everything that is meant for your life. Whatever that fear is, self-created, or if somebody gave you that fear, was influenced by someone else, I want to teach you like right now, and it's simple, how to use fear and not let fear use you. All right, so lock in. The first thing, you have to understand what fear is meant to do. Fear is meant to keep you safe. Our brains aren't programmed to help us live our best life. They're programmed to help us live our safest life. That's why it's so much easier to find reasons to not do something than it is to find reasons to actually do it. And of course, that's super helpful at times, right? But it's also super hurtful at times. It often encourages us to live in a box that's safe, but not exciting. It encourages us to settle for less when our life was created for so much more. Fear is actually this. And I want you to think about all the times in your life you've been fearful and see if this is actually true. Fear is creating a known result from a situation that you haven't experienced yet. Meaning, fear is saying what it's going to be before you go do it. So it's like saying you're going to lose before you ever try to go in. You are literally programming yourself with failure. Do you hear me? Before you ever try to succeed. So I promise you, if you keep that mindset, if you keep it, you will never live your worth. I know that's harsh, but it's true. You will never become more. Because in order to grow, you have to learn how to live outside of your comfort zone. I know you heard that a million times because that's where all change takes place, outside of your comfort zone. And fear wants to do the opposite. Fear wants you to stay safe and comfortable and inside your comfort zone. Fear doesn't want to push you. So you have to change your relationship with fear. And here's how you do it, okay? Number one, we got to create meaning in the moment. And I know you just heard a lot about meaning. I know you probably know everything about it. But it's like I always say, when the reward is great enough, the fear will never be strong enough. Think about it like this. I'm afraid of wild animals. I am, truthfully, and rightfully so. So fear can have its positive force too. It can keep us alive, right? So I'm not gonna go into the jungle and go into a cage, all these. Let's take the Harambe moment, for example. I promise you, I would jump into that cage with the gorilla to save my child. No hesitation, facts. Why? because my child's life is way more important than any fear I could experience in that moment. So think about this. Did my fear of gorillas disappear? Absolutely not. But the meaning is so strong that the fear can't be felt. I'm sure there's times in your life where you had the same example. Maybe not with gorillas and things like that, but with something in your life that a normal fear didn't control you because the reward was too great, right? Maybe it's something with your kids. Number two, this kind of piggybacks off of number one. Change what awaits on the other side. Let's look at fear as a door, right? As a door preventing us to live our worth. If on the other side of this door is something negative, you will never walk through the door, right? Common sense. I mean, why would you walk through the door if you know you're gonna have a negative experience? But what if you guarantee yourself that something positive will happen no matter what when you walk through the door? And something negative would happen if you didn't take the chance, if you didn't take the action. This mindset changed my life, changed my whole relationship with fear. Once I realized that the only loss was not trying, I found myself not being afraid to try. Over time, I went from programming myself to stop at fear to programming myself to push through fear, to conquer fear. And this can be the same for you. I promise you, it's not an overnight experience, but over time, you can build that muscle. You can strengthen that muscle. And number three, and this is the piggyback off of 1 and 2, and these things seem super simple, but I promise you, if you practice it, it'll help. I obsess over creating a positive outcome no matter the outcome. Obsess over it. So regardless of the result, you have to create a positive takeaway from the experience that you can build on, that you can learn from. You can use this technique when it comes to moving on from relationships. You can use this technique trying out for a team, applying for a job interview. No matter the result, you have to program yourself to know that there will be something positive from it. And you will find the courage to walk through the door of fear every single time because you know the experience is going to be beneficial for your life. And I know this seems like way too easy to work, but that same easy has worked against you for years. This is how I get this question, how are you able to speak to all these people? This is how I'm able to speak to 5,000 people live. This is how I was able to create this course and challenge my fear. This is how I was able, when I was playing football, to play in front of 75,000 people. The point is, you can't erase fear, but we can stop it from controlling us. So what I want you to do right now is come up with your strategy to attack fear. What's going to be the positive outcome that you create when fear shows up, when it's right in your face? What's going to be the leverage you use in your life to push you through fear? The fear that's keeping you from living your worth, the fear that's keeping you from being the best you. And again, I want to remind you to do something. To build confidence in this moment, you always can go back. Go back to a time where you conquered fear. You might not even knew it was fear because you were so lost in the moment. Like I said, maybe your kid was somewhere they shouldn't have been. Maybe it wasn't with a gorilla, but maybe it was a situation that normally you would have been afraid of. In my house, we just had a snake in our house not too long ago. I'm not a firm believer of snakes. I don't like snakes, but I got kids in there. So my fear of snakes went out the window. So think about that, because it's not the fear that presents itself in the moment. It's the mindset that you have in the moment. And again, when the reward is great enough, the fear will never be powerful enough. All right? So write down in your workbook, how are you going to respond and the positive outcomes you're going to set when fear shows its face. And I promise you, you'll conquer through fear every single time. Let's get it. All right, welcome to the last section of Living Your Worth. And listen, I'm jumping right into it like always. You know, maybe you're dealing with a relationship, maybe you're dealing with a dream, maybe it's overcoming a past battle. The most powerful thing, whatever it is that you can do, is show yourself that you can do it. Most powerful thing ever. I know it seems simple, but what that does is it builds something called confidence, which we'll talk about in the next section as we wrap up this course. Listen to me. I challenged myself to prove myself wrong and to change my life. I challenged my limitations. I challenged my lack of belief. I challenged my fears. If you think you can't do it, go prove yourself wrong. Like, too many of us are too big picture minded, right? And this might seem very crazy to say and not the most motivating thing to say, but lock in with me. Too many times we're so focused on the big picture of things that we ignore the small progressions. So we look at the big picture, we're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm not making no progression. I will never get there. I call it the Mount Everest mindset. I'm about to break it down in a second. Well, actually the Camelback Mountain, because I never climbed Everest. But we sit there and we look at the big picture, right? It's like, I can never get there. You start changing and you feel like you're not making any progress. That's why I say oftentimes you have to take your mind off of your vision back into your daily progressions, right? Fall in love with progression. The reason I say the Camelback mindset or the Mount Everest mindset, when I first hiked Camelback Mountain, if you don't know what Camelback Mountain is in Phoenix. It was hot, the middle of the summer. It's like 1,010 degrees out there. I feel like the devil was just breathing on your neck. But, I'm an athlete, so I'm trying to not, actually I was having an ego. I'm not trying to have an ego. I was having an ego. I was around people. I was around people who were athletes. So I'm like, okay, I can get this. It's nothing but a mountain. Like, I can climb a mountain. I've been climbing mountains all my life, even though it was my first time climbing a mountain. So make a long story short, I didn't make it to the top at all. And I was very discouraged. But what I should have done was go to my peak. Even though my peak wasn't at the top, my peak could have been 100 feet. My peak could have been a mile into the hike. And then I can always come back and I can progress. I can grow. I can get stronger. And then eventually what happens? You reach your peak. And so what I'm telling you right now is to show yourself it's possible. And what I mean by that is to show yourself that you can prove yourself wrong, that you actually can go try, that you actually can go attempt. One of the things that I often coach and teach people is success is not in the achievement all the time. It's in the attempt. Because most people never attempt something. And so if you never attempt it, there's no way you can ever accomplish it over time. And so I'm going to break it down like this in this section. And this section is pretty short and we'll move on. But I'm going to break it down like this. How do you prove yourself wrong? And maybe right now you're in a mindset that you're super confident, so you're proving yourself right. But for most of you watching this right now, if you're like me, right, you're telling yourself what you can't do. You're telling yourself that it's impossible. You're telling yourself that it will never happen for you. You're telling yourself you will never live your worth because you're basing your life off of your past, off of people's opinions, off of your environment. Hopefully you changed that by now. Go back into training if you haven't. But this is the timeline, how things work, how it worked in my life. When I first started my journey of RehabTime, right, being a speaker, being an author, being a coach, I didn't think I could do it. I'm an introverted person. I don't like speaking in front of people. I never had no experience in it. All of these things, right? There's so many people that are better than me. Like, I had a vision, but as soon as I started on my journey and I didn't succeed overnight, I was like, oh, that can't happen for me. So this is the steps to prove yourself wrong. The first thing that I had to do to prove myself wrong and just try it, even though I didn't believe it at the time, is I had to go try, right? I had to go try. So I don't know what that looks like for you. Some of you are watching this that you have a dream. Some of you are watching this that you want to break free from a relationship. Some of you, you want to make your vision come true. Take this for what it is for you. So the first step you have to do is go try, right? Just go try. I promise you, you probably won't succeed the way you want to or succeed the way people want you to do it, but it's okay. You can always come back. And so in those moments of trying, that might take a year, right, of the same type of effort. You feel like you're not moving anywhere. It might take a month. It might take a week. Everybody's journey is different, but I stayed with it. So I kept trying different things. I kept making videos. I kept sharpening my skills. I kept talking to the cell phone camera, becoming more confident. Then after about, I would say half a year, I went from trying to actually doing it. Was I great at it? Absolutely not, looking back. At the time, I thought I was. I was terrible at it, but I was actually doing it. I found some confidence in myself. And a lot of us, we never arrive to that place because we quit after we try and we don't succeed the way the world wants us to succeed. And so I stayed in this season of proving myself wrong for maybe another 6 months. right? Maybe it was a year. I don't really remember the time frame. But I kept doing the work. I kept being consistent. I kept being committed. We'll have a course over championship mindset that breaks down the habits. I kept doing the work. Then over time, I went from I'm doing this to I'm actually pretty good at this, right? And so I started to separate myself. And people started to watch videos. Maybe it was you. People started to put me in categories with other motivational speakers and tag me with people like Oprah. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what is going on? So I started to build more confidence. So I'm starting to prove myself wrong again and again and again. And what this is doing, right, you're starting to realize, and at least myself, I was starting to realize that the greatest limitations on our lives are the ones that we set. We often live inside our limitations. We often live inside what we can't do. We often live inside of that instead of our aspirations. So I spent time in that season, right, of me actually being good at it. Then it went from me being good at it to me being one of the best at it. And that took probably, 3-4 years. As you see, all this is patience. And patience is a talent. If you can find patience in your journey, growth has to surrender to you. Change has to surrender to you. But most people, especially in this instant gratification world, most people never have enough patience to actually see the harvest produce from the seeds that they planted. So I spent time in this season, right, for a few years. Now I'm in this place currently, right? Now I'm in the place of what can't I do? I'm in the place of anything that seems impossible, I'm going to go try it. I'm in the place of me being my biggest cheerleader instead of me being my biggest hater. Do I still have doubt? Absolutely, I'm a human being. Do I still have fears? Absolutely, I'm a human being. But that is a lot less than what it was for when I was trying to prove myself wrong. So Trent, what's the goal? The goal is that timeline, right? Write down those steps in that timeline. Don't put a timeline on that. I know that seems crazy to say, but don't put a time frame on your timeline, should I say. But just work your habits. And there will come a point where you get to that place where I'm at, where you're proving yourself right. Trent, what do you mean by that? Well, I have confidence in myself now. And so I say, I can do this. And so now I have to follow that same timeline, but my mindset is different. I'm working not to prove myself wrong. I'm working to prove myself right. So I hope that's set in your heart. And just know this is how you live your worth.